Hey everyone, Regal Reviews here. It's Wednesday, which means time for my Once Upon a Time recap. So yeah, a lot went on tonight's episode, like a lot. Um, we see Henry, Ella, and Nook, which is New Hook in the Enchanted Forest, and basically Henry's sick of not being part of his story, and as we've seen before, and I've always thought he's part of his story. He's just kind of behind the scenes because he's the author. And he wants to propose to Ella, which is so sweet, but he wants to do he wants to give her a ring, but wants to have some kind of story behind it. So Nook tells him about this ring in Davy Jones' locker, but um he in this bar, and it's quite funny because Nook had to kind of like be in disguise, incognito. I mean, in disguise because he didn't want everyone to know Captain Hook's in his bar, and Henry's confused because he thinks what his adventures in this bar, and he reveals that Blackbeard has the Jolly Roger, so um, they need to get the Jolly Roger back from him. So they get on the Jolly Roger, and they um Henry that Blackbeard finds them, and he Hook reminds them that you can't kill royalty because this is Prince Henry of Storybrooke. And then Blackbeard is taken back. It's like, my apologies, but he can't kill him. That doesn't mean the sharks can. So he ties them up and is going to offer them to the sharks. But Nook, with his hook, actually got them free. And when they're about to sword fight, it's revealed that Nook set this whole thing up to give Henry some type of adventure. So because he knows that his other version of Hook has helped Henry out a lot in these type of situations, so he wanted to do the same. And Henry, basically says, that he wants this, that basically getting out alive is what Cinderella would, not like an epic story behind something. So he gives this ring back to Davy back to oh my gosh, Davy Jones' locker, and they make it back. And Henry takes Ella to this piece of land that apparently nothing epic happened during the curse, and he proposes to her in such the sweetest way. I mean, I would have said yes to Henry. He says he offers to build a house, and he says, I can't give you like I believe he said epic legacy or story, but I can't give you my heart. I'm like, oh, like that was just the sweetest proposal ever. So let me read my notes here. We see that Henry's podcast apparently is taking off. Margot, who we saw in the last episode, is in Hyperion Heights, and she's a big fan of it. And Henry actually gets a job offer to do a podcast in New York. Well, not really do a podcast. He's more producing a podcast, but that means he'd have to give up his current podcast. So he's trying to get to this interview in New York, and Jacinda is conflicted because she obviously doesn't want Henry to go to New York, but she's just won't say anything about it. And Lucy's feeling bad for keeping her family apart. And Kelly and Lucy had like the sweetest scene ever. Like, it was hysterical, but it also was very heartwarming because Lucy's all curious, thinking that Kelly's making some type of potion, but she says it's just vegetables and stuff till Ronnie gets here. And she was kind of a bit harsh to Lucy, and Lucy was commenting saying, wow, you're not really good with kids, are you? And I was like, oh my god, there's like that Mills sass. I swear to god, that's like an inherited trait in the Mills family. And Kelly and Lucy then understand each other because they both have to keep things from their family members. Lucy from her mom and dad, and Kelly has to keep things from her daughter Margot. And we see that Kelly and Margot are kind of having a rough patch in a relationship because Margot doesn't understand why she was asked to come back to Hyperion Heights, and she wants to know exactly what's going on with Kelly because she left everything in San Francisco, and including her fiance, and you know, being under the curse, she can't exactly tell Margot what's going on. So Margot, goes to have some time to, I guess, reflect about what's going on, her current situation. And we also see her and Tilly together because Rogers gave Tilly a job, and Tilly's working on the food truck with Sabine. And by accident, Tilly makes a heart beignet. So Sabine suggests that maybe Tilly's skill set is sewing, and turns out it's true. Tilly's really good with the customers and talking with them, and she talks with Margot and gets her to understand Kelly's point of view. So she's definitely Team Kelly. And she also offers Margot the heart shaped beignet, and I'm like, I really do ship Matt Archer. I definitely think those two have terrific chemistry, and I definitely think that that's true love. I definitely cannot wait to see where they take their relationship. So then Lucy then goes to Jacinda and wants her to call Henry because she wants her family back together. And what was going on in the episode is that when Henry was leaving, Weaver contacts him because he found a clue at the crime scene. I couldn't exactly tell what it was, but it turns out it was Henry's book. So whoever the killer is a fan of Henry's story. And if you didn't see last week's episode, it definitely, gave big hints to who the killer is because Nick was at Ronnie's bar and was feeling down because he lost a client, hinting that was probably Ivy, that Ivy got away. And when they're going through Henry's storybook to try to find some type of clue as to who the killer might be, I gotta say, I really do like the scene between Weaver and Henry. Weaver admitted that Henry's always his favorite character, and Henry's like, well, yeah, who wouldn't love a cute, adorable kid who believes in fairy tales? And Weaver said, no, that's not why I believe in Henry. Weaver said, that's not why Henry's my favorite character. Henry's my favorite character because he fights for what he believes in, and fights for belief, and fights for, let me see here. Yeah, basically, fights for belief and everything. So it was very sweet. It was a very sweet moment between Grandpa Rumple and Henry, and they actually figure out from the notes that he was taking that the killer is Hansel and that he wants to avenge his sister's death. So Henry ends up deciding not to go to this interview with some convincing from Weaver. And while he was packing before, we saw a piece of the glass slipper, and while he was driving to the airport, we saw that he got a flat tire, and it was part of a glass from the glass slipper. So Henry's, thinks of this as a sign, like maybe he shouldn't go to New York. And Nick stops, and I'm like, oh my god. Nick stops him and offers him a ride at first to the airport, but he says that he wants to go back to Jacinda. And then Henry, not knowing who Nick is, and, well, he knows who Nick is, but not who he really is. Henry tells Nick about what he found with Nook and, well, not Nook, Rogers and Weaver, about the whole Hansel and who the candy killer is. So Hook doesn't let him out of his car then. Nick doesn't let him out of his car, and especially Henry knows he's a candy killer when he sees scars on Nick's arm, and that was part of a clue in the book. And it seems, we see that Nick's making candy for more people and has Henry hostage, and he said it's undetermined what he's going to do to him yet. And Henry says, he could still turn himself in. He can, like plead insanity, but Nick says, well, then I don't get to kill anymore. So he's like freaking insane here. Like, where's Regina when you need her? I'm sure she'll be in the episode next week to rescue Henry. But that was very chilling. But I think the most chilling moment was at the very end of the episode. Margot and Kelly have a heart-to-heart. Margot understands there's some things that Kelly needs to keep from her. But Kelly also admits that she misses some of her life, like Chad, her fiance. And Margot says, well, she thinks that Chad left her this box of chocolates at the door, but from Kelly knowing what she knows about the candy killer, knows that she's the candy killer's next target. And the previews for next week shows that she is the next target, and apparently she has a past with Nick. And Nick wants the Wicked Witch gone, and we don't know why yet. I'm gonna assume it's for his it might have something to do with the Hansel and Gretel experience that we read about, how Hansel was in the oven. Maybe she had something to do with it, or maybe he just doesn't like witches. He's trying to kill all the witches. I don't know, but it's definitely going to be a Zelena-centric episode next week, and it's also going to be the episode that Lana directed, so I'm very excited for next week's episode. But it looks like it's going to be really scary because Nick not only has Henry, but he also has Kelly's fiance Chad hostage. So yeah, it looks like Kelly doesn't have to tell Chad about fairy tales. It looks like that's going to be revealed to him next week. When, wow, what a way to be revealed that you're about to marry a fairy tale character. But if he loves her, he'll marry her for who she is. And it looks like I'm a little bit confused about next week's episode, because Zelena says that, the Wicked Witch has caused her all this pain and everything. So I'm wondering if they're going to go the route they did with Regina, how she said the evil queen was the cause of everything that went wrong in her life. So I'm wondering if Zelena is going to separate herself from the Wicked Witch, so then Zelena would be one character and the Wicked Witch would be one character. That was definitely a very confusing plot line for me when that happened with Regina and the Evil Queen. It was very confusing, and I'm still confused by it. I definitely think, people say that when she broke free of the Evil Queen, and then she took out her heart and gave her some of her love, but in exchange she took in some of her darkness, that she accepted herself and finally loved herself for who she is. But if she loved herself for who she was, wouldn't she have tried to accept the part of the Evil Queen and they'd be back together again? Wouldn't that be the same thing with Zelena? Like, wouldn't she take, wouldn't she take, like, some responsibility for what she's done? I think she has, but I'm wondering, like, how would that come about? Is there going to be, like, a Wicked Witch character then, and then Zelena's a character? Like, that just made it really confusing. It's probably one of the most confusing things about Once Upon a Time, that whole storyline. I'm hoping they don't go that route. We'll have to wait and see. So I hope you guys enjoyed Once Upon a Time tonight. If you guys want to check out Once Upon a Time, it is on Fridays, 8 p.m. on ABC. Until next week, stay regal.